Back to school season is in full swing, and boy, do I have something really fun for us today. We are going to create my back to school treat box bundle. It's got 3 different treat boxes. You've got a little school bus, you've got a pencil, and then an apple. All of these have a lot of space on the inside for you to put snacks, school supplies, treats, whatever you think. These might be fun little decorative things for your kiddos to keep on their desk, to keep all their pens inside of. So you can see like a Sharpie marker fits in there really well. And then you could easily personalize these and throw a name on them. Maybe instead of writing school bus, maybe you want to put a name on here instead, or, you know, welcome back, or name, teacher's name, or your student's name on there. So many things that you can do with these. So let's jump in and get putting these together. Okay, so we're gonna start here with the apple, and then we'll move on to the pencil and then leave the school bus for last. So I've got everything kind of already cut out here, and then we'll just get moving. So you've got this base piece here, and then you've got a couple of different pieces here that are decorative, and then you have 2 apples here that have a straight edge bottom. Those go with that funny looking piece, and then all of these here we're going to paper piece. So you can decide if you want to do the stem first or the leaf, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and put the stem. Let me just make sure I have. Yep, that one goes there. And this one's going to go here. So they look backwards on here because they are going to mirror themselves when you put them on the treat box. So I'm just going to put a little glue, and I'm going to line them up flush on this top edge here. And give that a good press. And then we can do the same thing on this side, putting some glue on the back. Doesn't need a lot of glue. And then I'm going to line up this edge right here, and I'm going to make that nice and flush. And the nice thing about liquid glue is that if you don't have it perfect the first time you lay it down, you do have a minute to kind of move things around and get them lined up where you want them before the glue dries. And then we're going to add our leaf. So you have a more kind of a long pointed end and then kind of a stubby point. Your long pointed end is what's going to match up here. So you just want to make sure you've got those lined up correctly as well. I think. And they're not completely symmetrical, so you do want to just make sure you've got the correct one for the correct piece here. There we go. I'm just going to put some glue on the back of this. And then again, I'm just looking at that tip, getting that lined up all flush along this edge. And then it almost lines up perfectly to the end of your stem. Just a little bit of hanging over. And press that in. And then we can do the same thing with this one. Just put a little bit of glue on here. Get that lined up nicely, which is what I'm having trouble doing. And I put glue on the wrong side, I think. Okay. Okay. So there's our 2 covering panels. I'm going to set those aside, and then we're going to work on the actual shape here. So you've got these 2 pieces. And then this piece here, you're going to fold all of the score lines away from you. just take your time with these, make sure you get them all folded. Okay, and then what we're gonna do, these are gonna go so that all of your seams are on the outside of this apple. So this will go on the inside. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put glue right here on the inside of this glue flap. And then I can just tuck this right in here. And it should be the same distance all the way across that straight edge. And then I'm just gonna fold this up, and that should get it right into that seam, all the way into that seam. And don't worry about making a mess with the glue on this side. We're gonna cover this up with the covering panel. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing over here. Well, while we're doing things flat. So I'm just gonna get this lined up right on that score line. And then I can just fold this piece up and over. Okay, so you've got the basic shape starting out here. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of these tiny glue tabs, they're gonna go on the outside. I forgot to train this. You do wanna give this a good kind of train it to curve. So I'll take like a Sharpie or something and just kind of, it's a little bit difficult now that we've already attached it, but just try to give that a little bit of a curve, just like you would do with a ribbon. And that's just gonna help it learn to curve up. So you can see now we've got a little bit of curve. That's just gonna make it a little bit easier when we go to train this up. So now what we're gonna do is this is gonna come all the way up to this corner, and you want that to sit really nice and flush. So what I like to do is start out here at the outer edge, and I'm just gonna put glue on these last three that are on there, and I'm just gonna fold this on up. And then you can just, I like to use my table, which is why I've got my mat out here. So I can fold those under the table and just curve that to the curve. So I know, let me get my hand around here. So with my left hand, I'm gonna press in along this curve, and then my right hand's pressing in, and my left hand, I'm gonna use that to press down on the table to secure those glue flaps. I'm just concentrating on that corner there, and that's just setting up the shape for me. And then I got way too much glue in here. Just get that glue out. So I'm not worried about glue on this side, but it will dry clear, but I still try to clean that up when I can. So now what we can do is come through here and we can start adding glue. I'm still gonna do just a couple of these at a time because you wanna make sure they're flush all the way to that score line. So I did like 5, and we're gonna do that same thing, flip that over, push those under the table. And then with my right hand, I'm pressing that edge in. And then with my left finger, I'm just kind of riding that seam, making sure everything is tucked in. Okay, we'll do, at this point now, I feel like I could probably do the rest of them. That seam looks really good, so I'm just gonna quickly throw on some glue here. If you are not experienced with this type of assembly with all these tiny glue tabs, then I recommend just doing a couple of these glue tabs at a time instead of doing all of them at once, because you want to make sure you have a really nice curve here. So I'm still just taking that right hand, pressing in, and then my left hand, I'm just pressing down on those seams. So by putting these on the outside, you're allowing this piece here to get all the way into that score line so that all the glue tabs are very snug and secure. So there's that side. We're gonna do the same thing on this end. So I'll show you if we just do a couple at a time, and this time I'm just gonna work all the way up. And I'm just going to do a couple at a time. So I'm just showing you a couple different techniques that you can use to do this. So there's glue on the first 3. And then again, I'm just going to lay this flat on the table. I am still going to train this entire piece to curve, but I'm really just going to concentrate on that first little section here. So again, with that right hand pressing in, left hand pressing down to secure those edges. Okay, and then we'll do 3 or 4 more and just keep repeating that process all the way up this ledge. So if this is not very good, if this is maybe you haven't done this type very often, this is how I want you to do it. Just a couple at a time to make sure you have a chance to really get that edge defined and get that curving the correct way here. Okay, we'll do 3 or 4 more. And same thing, gonna press that into the table, pressing from the outside, pressing in that curve, and then using my finger on the inside here to press everything together. And then at this point, I'll probably just finish these last couple up here. Okay, so we'll just do the last couple on them here. Same thing. Just gonna press this curve. So be very mindful of the very end of this curve. Get that pressed in because it's not going to want to naturally curve. It's going to want to be a nice straight edge. So give that a good press from the outside to follow that curve all the way to the end. Okay, so this one is done for that side, and we're going to repeat that same process with this one here. So I pulled this away so we could see what we're doing. So now let's see if we can't get it tucked back in. Come on, glue tabs. You might have to just fold those glue tabs out so you can get your apple shaped down on the inside. Okay. Whew, that was a little bit of a chore. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go nice and slow on this side here. We're just going to do 3 or 4 at a time, working on that curve. You don't need a lot of glue. You just want to get that glue close to that score line, because that score line is where you really want to be careful and have a really good seam. And then again, I'm still going to use my table to help me, except now you can't, it's a little bit more difficult to see what you're doing, but I'm still going to be pressing from the outside and then getting my finger here on the inside. I know you can't see it, and I'm just pressing along on that inside seam there. Okay, we're just going to keep repeating that process the next couple here. So I use the table because if you do it, you can do it here, but it is definitely a lot more difficult because you can't see what the back side of that seam looks like, but you can still, I have my hand on the inside pressing up, and then I can just kind of press these over. I personally don't think that, that's not my favorite way to do it, but that is another way that you can do this. But I really just enjoy using the table to help me out, keep things nice and flat so I can get my hand in there and press down and make really good contact. So taking just a couple at a time, you're definitely going to get a better contact with that seam than trying to rush through and get them all done at the same time. Even for an experienced person, just doing a few at a time is definitely going to make it a lot cleaner and neater. And then remember, just concentrate right on this very edge. Make sure those seams look good. Okay, so that's done. And we just have one more side here to repeat that same process. So getting glue on a couple of these tabs here. And trying to concentrate my glue close to that score line. Okay. And then folding that over. Tucking all of those glue tabs underneath. And then using that table to help me get the right shape here. Okay. And you may find you have to turn this all sorts of different directions so you can get in there and see what you're doing, and that's totally fine. If I wasn't on camera, I'd have this thing all sorts of different directions all over my desk. So whatever you got to do so you can get in there and take a look. Get those seams pressed in well. If you see any gaps, like if you can see light through the box, and that means you did not get those seams pressed as close as they should be. So just, that's what you're kind of watching for, which is why it's better if you only do a couple at a time. See, this one here got a little goofed up because I tried to rush. And I've got gaps. So what I'm doing when I have gaps is I can come and pull this one by one. I got my hand underneath holding on to this apple, and then I'm pulling each glue tab one at a time, just pulling that with my fingernail, just pulling it in to make sure that those gaps are nice and closed. So now I don't see any light through there. And that's what happens if you do too many at a time. It's just not as easy to concentrate on just filling up those spots. Okay, we'll do last little ones here. And remember that one at the very top, you really want to concentrate on making sure that has a good curve there. Okay, so there is our apple shape is put together. So now all we have to do is decorate it. These pieces are going to be a little bit larger than what you see here. The bottom here is going to hang off. So I'm going to put my glue on here, and then we're just going to aim to make everything flush at the top and then work our way down that way. And you'll have a little bit of overhang at the bottom here because this has bumps and is not straight like this one. So I'm just concentrating on the seams at the top, making those nice and flush. And if you got those nice and flush, everything else should just fall into place around the rest of the edges. You should have nice, pretty edges there. Okay, so there's that side. So if you probably can't tell very much, but there's a little bit right here, just a tiny little bit of those bumps that hang off the edge there. And we're gonna do the same thing on this side. So I think these are like really great teacher gifts. You could absolutely put candy in here. You could personalize these to put, teacher's name on there if you wanted. Or if you wanted them to say like, welcome back. Maybe you are the teacher and you want to put one on each student's desk. Lots of different uses for these. Maybe it's the first class party of the year and everybody needs some snacks. Or some hand sanitizer, or there's all sorts of things. These are large enough that you can really fit all sorts of goodies in here. Maybe you just want to set this on your desk and this is where you hold all your pencils. You can absolutely do that too. Okay, so our box is put together. So let me just show you, like you can put in markers. Let me just like throw in all of my little weeding tools here. So, you know, it's got, you have to be careful to make sure that both sides are well balanced with weight. But I mean, this is gonna hold all sorts of different things. Okay, so we got this one done and our apple looks super cute. Let's go ahead and set that aside here. And then let's work on our pencil. So lots of decorative layers on this one as well. Score lines on there to help you with placement and then also for folding. And this has two different sections for the box. So we're just gonna start by folding down your glue tabs. Should be folded away from you. And then these ones here are to put your little decorative pieces. And actually we should do that before we start folding. Let's decorate these first. That's gonna be a lot easier. So we have the little tabs, score lines here to kind of show you where these pieces should go. So I'm just gonna put a line of glue down the center. And that's where these are going. So I did a very slight color that's like slightly different. You could do the same color. You could ink the edges to make it stand out a little bit differently. There's lots of ways that you could make this stand out, but it doesn't even have to stand out. You could just layer the same color on top and even that will just put some shadows on here to make it look a little bit different. So I'm just going to come through here. Got those lovely lines there to show you where these are going to go. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on this piece here. Just putting a little line of glue inside these score lines. And then I'm going to run my strips right there. So I'm using all Recollections cardstock. The yellows, these are just different, probably a yellow color pack that has a couple different shades of yellow. And then actually this bright yellow is Astro Bright. So I've got a mix here of cardstock because I just didn't have any true, I call it true yellow, but like school bus yellow, you know? Okay, and then we're just gonna finish up with these. So the next part is these long triangle trapezoids, maybe? Is that a correct geometry name? These are gonna go next, and they're gonna sit right on top of these lines here. Oh, you are not quite, didn't quite get you all the way up there. So it's gonna go flush on these corners, and it'll sit right up on top of those pieces. And if you're worried that maybe you didn't get those perfectly in the score lines, then you could do the black piece first to get everything lined up. But everything is going to end up lining up flush all the way down here. All of the sides are going to run into each other. So you do have to be careful. If one piece is done wrong, then you could probably throw off the whole size. This one here is what's going to go up here. This is the pencil tip, and I put double-sided sticky tape on the back of these, and let me see if I can peel this off. While I didn't necessarily need it for this piece, it will come in handy with those other ones. So I'm just going to lay this on here. The thing with the double-sided tape is you only get one shot, so you want to make sure you're confident when you lay it down there. Starting to look a little more like a pencil, huh? Let's do those same two pieces on here. So we've got our, what would you call this? Like the center of the wood once you've sharpened your pencil. This is supposed to remind you of a number 2 pencil. Okay, and then I'll grab that other one here. Well, come on. I didn't do a good job about test cutting. So ideally I would have done these as die cuts and not kiss cuts, but that's okay. So again, this piece is going to line up here. I'm going to line up this tip first, and then that should lay nice and flush. Boy, I did a terrible job laying that on there. And then this, let me just salvage this a little bit. Put this one on the back since I didn't quite line that up right. Okay, we're almost done getting this, and then I've got this lovely little shiny piece. This is, I did out of a, I think this is a rose gold foil Recollections cardstock. And this is to represent the little metal strip that is on those pencils, and it's going to line up flush at the bottom here. And then under that, you've got this piece here, which is your eraser. And I did this one out of red. If you have like a more pinkish red, that might look better. And then this is just going to line up nice and flush with that bottom score line there. Okay, so now can you kind of see our pencil shape coming along? And then let's put those last few pieces on this one as well. I'm going to do my little pencil piece, or my eraser rather. So this is going to go flush all the way to this bottom edge. And then it should be nice and flush between those score lines as well. And then that little gap that's there is where your little shiny piece is going to go. Your little metal holder that keeps the eraser in place. Okay, so we've got everything lovely in here. So now we can go ahead and we can just put this together. So I'm going to put glue on this whole score tab here. And then while this is flat, we can go ahead and just lay this on top. So it should stop at that bottom score line. So you have this part where it stops, and it should be nice and flush up here at the top. Okay, that looks good. And then you can just fold that back if you need to. Make sure you're nice and flush right at that edge. Okay, So everything's coming along. Now we can go ahead and fold down on all of our score lines here. And this one right here was a cut line. So this piece should fold. And we're still just folding all of those score lines away from ourselves. Okay, so now all we have to do, I'm going to put some glue on this one here, and this will tuck under the other end. So you could probably just lay this flat and get that folded up in there. Okay. Like to fold both directions to make sure that seam is nice and secure. And then all we have left to do is to fold up the bottom. So these tabs you're going to fold in, and then you don't have to put glue on them, but you can. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some glue on these. This is just going to help make things a little bit more secure. And then same thing here, I'm going to put glue on this part here. This is just going to fold up our box. So let's see if we can't tuck those down. And I did not get my measurements correct. Okay, well, I will fix this in your file. That's embarrassing. But that will fold in, and then you'll have a really nice seam here at the bottom, and then it'll tuck in. So I will make sure I get that fixed for your file. But there is our lovely pencil. The two different colors don't show up really well on camera, but they look really good in person. Okay, so now we've got that one done, and this is another one that you can go ahead and you can put, you can put school supplies in it, you can put candies in it, all sorts of things. So let's go ahead and just move on to our last one, which is our school bus. And there is a lot of paper piecing to do with this one before we put the structure together. So you've got these two pieces here that are the shape of your school bus. And they've got a bunch of score lines on them to help you figure out where all the pieces go. So I'm going to start with these top score lines here, and I'm just going to put a little dab of glue inside these. These score lines are going to be where we put our windows. And the only windows that are different are, there's a tiny little sliver of a window for the front that's like the windshield. And then the last one on the end is slightly smaller, but the rest of them are all the same size. And we're just gonna stick that on there and then just get that lined up with that score line. And then I can just come through and put in, let's see, where's my, I had them all here. This one's a little bit smaller. I had them all lined up, and then of course you jumble them around to make room, and then they're not all lined up pretty again. And then where's my other one that's a little bit smaller? I think it's that one. So the rest of these are all the same size. Okay, and just come through, put all your windows on. I cut these out of a really light blue. You could cut them out of white, you can cut them out of vellum. But I thought this really light colored blue would be good to kind of be like a reflection. So I'm just lining up the bottom edge right with those score lines and then just laying it flat and pressing it into the glue. I know that's probably hard to see. Okay, and then it's gonna be the same thing on this one. I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch me duplicate everything. The thing that's different, you've got these long ones. Those go right here. Those are the glass for the door. So I'll just show you here. But they go down just the same as everything else. Okay. And then the other thing that's different, this one would be like the driver's side. So you have a stop sign on the driver's side, and then with the stop sign, it's got a couple layers to it. And I put the double-sided tape on this white. But you have a red that goes on top of the white so that there's a little bit of white sneaking out around the edges. So I'm just going to put a little glue on this. So it's just a very, very small edge that goes all the way around. And then on this red piece, you've got score lines there to write out the word stop. And these I did do with double-sided tape. And let me get this a little bit closer to me because these are tiny, tiny pieces and I am bound to goof this up. So let me see if I can even get the tape off of here. But you're just gonna line these up inside that score line just like you did everything else. And then these will just get stuck on there. I know these are tiny pieces and a little bit difficult to work with. So just take your time and get those scooted in there the best you can. And if you don't want to paper piece all of this, you could certainly look at doing this as a print and cut with all the details. If you wanted to set it up that way instead, that is an option. Oh, what did I do? Okay, there's my... So I'm just finding the straight edge at the bottom of the T and then just trying to set that in place. If you have like a pick-me-up tool or something, this would be a perfect use case for that with all of these little tiny pieces. Okay. And here's my O. All right, here's what I'm gonna do. You have the wheels will hang off at the bottom, and then your bumpers on the front and the back will also hang off. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish applying all of the pieces, the paper pieces. You do not need to sit here and watch me struggle with this. I'll be back when that is done. All right, I've got all of these paper pieced, and I definitely struggled with the double-sided tape on these little pieces, so perhaps that's not the best idea. You may just do better off with tiny little glue dots and not doing that. This one I tried to just lay it on there and pick up the extra space, and I've just made a mess. But maybe you can't see that from further away. Okay, we've got these pieces, paper piece. The other thing I just want to mention, these pieces hang off, the wheels hang off, and then the stop sign, I just made it flush with this top edge here, and then put that on there and just kind of eyeballed that one. So now we have to put together our actual box shape. So here is what that piece looks like. And then you're going to fold all the score lines away from you. Okay, and then this one's going to be really easy to put together. We're just going to put some glue on this tab right here. And then we're going to just line this up nice and flush right here on this corner. And then I just press that together between my fingers. Try to get your finger way down in there so you can press that corner together. And then just make sure that's nice and flush right there. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Putting glue here on this tab. Folding this piece over, watching this edge right here to be nice and flush. And then again, with my hand on the inside there, just getting all the way into that corner. Make those seams nice and flush. And give that a second to get secured. So you have half a box. We're going to do the same thing on these sides. So just getting glue on this glue tab here. Tuck that in. Hold that seam nice and flush. Okay, and then our last glue tab here. And then once again, we can hold that one nice and flush here, tuck that tab underneath, and then nice and flush on your corners. Get your fingers in there and give that a good press. Okay, so there is your box shape. Now all we have to do is glue these on. So this is going to sit a little bit funny, so they'll be flush at the back edge here. So your bumper will hang off, and then you want the yellow part of the bus flush all the way across the bottom. So it's actually going to stand up on the wheels. So I would put glue on the side of my box here. And you may decide to do this first and then put on your wheels. There are score marks to show you where the wheels go, just to make sure that you're getting flush on the edges, if that's easier for you. And I'm just right now looking at this back edge, getting that nice and flush on the yellow. And then also, maybe you want to flip this over, and I want it nice and flush along the bottom of my box. Definitely a good thing for liquid glue here, so you have time to move things around. And then you'll see we've got the front that kind of hangs over And then I'm just gonna, you can use your table, get your hand in there, and then just press all of those sides nice and secure. So there is the one side. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm gonna put glue on this part of my box here on the side. And then it'll be the same thing. Oop, I didn't cover that one. Putting the back edge nice and flush, and then you can kind of squeeze up so that those corners meet. Looking at this back edge. Whoops. Okay, and then looking at the bottom, making sure that that is also flush. Okay, and then you can put your hand inside there and give that a good press, get that nice and secured on there. Okay, so there is our school bus box. You've got lots of room in there, and then you got your lovely decorations on both sides. And then when you stand it up, it will stand by the wheels. Well, what did you think about our cute little treat box bundle? So here's a good close look here. Here is the school bus. Now you can see all my lovely mistakes with that tape. Maybe not the best idea, but this is the side that has the door, and then this side would be the driver's side. Again, not great with that double-sided tape. This one here is the apple. Lots of room on the inside. Real simple, looks good. And then our pencil. So now you can see the different colors here. So you could easily just, these little pieces, you could ink them if they were the same color as this with a little bit of a darker ink. And then that would work just as well. And then you can see really nice and deep in there. So there are your treat boxes. I'll leave a QR code right here so you can grab the treat box bundle for yourself. Otherwise, there's a link in the description box below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Let me know that you like crafting along with me, and I'll be back with some more videos in the future. Bye for now.